Good evening. I'd like to call the meeting to order for the Hampstead School Board on Tuesday, September 10th, 2019. Melissa, can you please call the roll?
Yes. Jason Giard.
Here.
Caitlin Parnell.
Here.
David Smith.
Here.
And James Sweeney, I see, is currently absent. And Karen Yusenka is currently absent. Also seated at the board table is Superintendent of Schools, Dr. Earl Metzler.
Okay, let's stand for the pledge. David, do you want to start us off?
Sure. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
In your packet tonight, you have minutes from our regular meeting from August 27th, as well as non-public minutes from August 27th. Please take a few moments to review, and I'll take a motion to approve or for discussion.
I'll move that we accept the two sets of minutes from August 27th, regular minutes and the non-public.
Second.
All in favor? All opposed? Abstaining?
Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, for current business, Mr. Flynn, I believe you have an update for us on the mosquito-borne illness discussion.
So I am here this evening to give you a brief update of what occurred over the past couple school days in regards to EEE and West Nile virus. On Tuesday, September 3rd, around 12:45, we received a report that Hampstead had tested positive out of one of the mosquito traps for EEE in the area. At that time, along with administration, we canceled the rest of outdoor recess for that day, and I met with Mr. Collins and Ms. Tanola to come up with a plan of action. And through consultation with Dr. Metzler, we prepared a parent notification at that time, allowing parent choice for 3 options for their students. Option 1 was to allow permission for the schools to apply. I'll use the word off. The second was to keep their student inside of school until the second frost. And then the third option was proceed as normal, and the families would take care of that at that time. Within the first 24 hours, I commend the families. We received over 85% response in regards to that permission through the Google form. The next day, we sent out a reminder email on Wednesday asking for those who haven't completed, and within the first 2 days, we had over 95%. After that 95%, we contacted families individually to make sure that they were agreeing to one of the 3 options. On Saturday, the town sprayed the fields for an emergency spray, and then this week, the buildings proceeded with those options of what the parents had designated for their children. In regards to middle school athletics, we have decided that all athletics will end by 6 o'clock for the remainder of the fall season or until the second frost, because the recommendation is to be inside by dusk, which is an average around 6:30, so we're not taking chances. We're moving that up to 6. And actually, the first couple of days have gone really well with the application of the off. I commend the staff for stepping up and helping us handle this. And then at the middle school, I witnessed it myself. It's almost as they've been through it before. The students know the plan, and everything's gone really well.
Thank you. Anyone have any questions?
No.
All right.
I'd like to
Thank
thank
you.
you all
Appreciate
for
it.
Thanks for
working as
jumping on it so
quickly
quickly.
as you did. Yep. Okay, next up, we have National Junior Honor Society Field Trip. We have Principal Denola, Mr. Fisher, and Mrs. Howard to discuss that.
Good evening, everyone. It is my pleasure to come before you to ask your permission to allow 27 of our National Junior Honor Society students to participate in an overnight field trip at the Camptown Noir. Do I say it Noir? Noir, which is a camp just down the road that has offered their facilities to us. Their intent is to open up their facility to the community when it's not in session. And so Mrs. Howard and Mr. Fisher came to me right at the first day of school and said, this is a great opportunity, can we run with it? So they have spent a lot of time putting it together, and they're here to just tell you a little bit about what the mission of this overnight camp will be. And Mrs. Joseph, our assistant principal, will be there, and I'm going to try to stop by as well. So, Jen, would you, Mrs. Howard, fifth grade.
Hi, how are you? Good evening. Kevin and I, Mr. Fisher and I, sorry, have been powwowing about this, and we've looked at a lot of options for leadership, and we know that that's our focus in the school, is try to get the kids with leadership opportunities, and so many of these things are so expensive way out there, and they're in Washington and Chicago, and it's just almost out of reach. And the opportunity came about that we could use a facility, start with a small group, and work on just an overnight small, keeping it to 27 kids, National Junior Honor Society is here, and work on communication, leadership skills, collaboration, cooperation. They're going to be working together very tightly all year in a goal for a project, their chapter project that they have in the spring, and they need to come together. And I think with the social emotional, and we're looking at that, this is a really great opportunity. The cost is very, very little. It's very close. It's nice and convenient. There's a lot of flexibility with it. And we have, starting off with cooperative games, we have the getting together 2 sessions, 2 one-hour sessions for the National Junior Honor Society to come together with myself as an advisor and a group to plan our year out, to look at what they want to do, how they want to leave their mark in the middle school or in the community. We thought it was just a really great opportunity, and Kevin had spoken to his facilities people at Camp Telnor as he works there during the summer, and they said, yeah, absolutely. There's parts of the facilities that we're going to use and parts that we're not going to use. We are going to use your cafeteria. We're not swimming. We're not in the pool. We're not jumping in the lake. It's a little cold. But we will use your basketball courts. We have a whole agenda planned on small groups that will rotate through, that get mixed up every rotation with group dynamics. They get a breakout reflection section or a session that they can powwow with us and say, what do you think? Where are we? What do you think about this whole experience? And where do you think we should move forward for the year coming up? So it's just a really great opportunity through Camp Telnor, and we're really thankful. And it's before they close up for the season, stop the water, the pipes, or the whole thing, and they just totally close up. I don't know if you want to speak to the facility at all.
Yeah, so I do work at the facility as a camper care supervisor, and one of the chaperones that will be on the trip, hopefully with us, is Nick Arroyo. He's worked there for 2 years as well, so he knows the grounds. Mrs. Joseph did tour the facility last week, and she's worked at a camp as well, so she really enjoyed it. And, we're looking at really reaching out to the community, and the community helping the schools, and we're thinking small for this first year, kind of like a pilot program with some 8th graders, and maybe if this is successful, we look for the future if this is an available facility to train our kids in leadership. And kind of our thought came with, kids aren't really given that many leadership opportunities until they're thrown into either a captain role or a section leader or a speaker. And we want to give them some training, some reflection and some training on what is a leader and how to be a good leader. So some of the faculty members will be meeting Jen and I at the facility and running individual workshops as well. So some Mrs. Rubin we're hoping to have will be doing some ropes course stuff, and it's all free of charge to our school. The only charge would be just the bus getting over there, and then we're hoping for parent donations for snacks and whatnot. Do you guys have any questions? Or
I'm assuming this is soon.
it's the 27th to the 28th.
Yeah.
Everything's in the packets.
Oh, sorry. Oh, my fault.
It's all good.
I just have a question. I think it's good. I'm glad that you took the initiative to do this. I just have one question. Was this ever done before in conjunction with the National Honor Society kids? No.
As far as I know, no. There's many leadership conferences and things like that kicking around. They have almost like summits here and there, but where we're a junior honor society, I think a lot of those are more geared towards the high school, the National Honor Society. Even our chapter projects are smaller scale, they're local, they're artwork in the building or ground keep and things like that to beautify the grounds, but no overnight or anything, not as far as I know. So this is really excited. We really are really excited. We think it's going to be a great time for the kids to bond. You've got kids in this society, in this honor society, that are very outspoken. We're hoping that the quieter ones will find their voice in this bunch of activities and find their place, academically, and they've met all the criteria and all 5 pillars for the honor society, but now to become really part of that group, I think it's going to be the strongest one we have because of this. So we're really excited about it.
They will be working on a project over just the 2 days called Make Your Mark, and it's going to be a student-led piece that we'll hopefully be able to bring back to our actual school. So what training pieces and what does our school need for leadership, and they can take some of those roles and bring it back to the school. And what that looks like, we're not quite sure because we kind of want to hear from the kids. But a lot of mixed groupings, and again, the group is super diverse in their leadership styles, and we're looking to give them some new skills to bring back to our school culture.
And just this, I have a second point.
Yeah.
You had made a remark, though, this was good for the community, interaction with the community. I just want to be clear, though, this is an arrangement between the Hampstead School District and Camp Tel Nor, which is separate, has nothing to do with the town of Hampstead. Is that correct?
As far as I know, yeah. Yeah.
Okay, I was just curious, because you said the community, and it's,
True, right.
I'm just looking at business perspective, it's Hampstead School
Right.
District and Camp Tel Nor. The town of Hampstead is not involved in this at all.
True.
Okay, thank you.
Sure, Dr. Metzler.
First, I'd like to take the opportunity, obviously, it takes leaders to train leaders, right? So I'd like to thank Ms. Howard, Mr. Fisher, and obviously Mr. Nolan and the staff, because these opportunities for our kids to become better leaders need to be trained by leaders. So thank you for that. The second piece, I'd like to commend the timing of this. A lot of times what schools, the mistakes we make sometimes is a lot of times we're doing this at the end of the year, in May into June, and it doesn't really help us during the school year. So this is a really powerful group, this National Junior Honor Society group, and a great place to start with some leadership. So we're excited about it, and we want to see them make their mark. We're excited to see what they bring back as well. But I just want to say thank you, both obviously as a parent and as a superintendent. So thank you.
Thanks, we're excited.
We've done, Mr. Fisher and I have been on quite a few overnights with Washington, or, the inauguration years ago and things like that. So as far as it goes there, I think our rapport with the kids is very good, it's well respected, and I don't think it's the National Junior Honor Society. We're not going to have discipline issues. We're hoping that these kids will have a new, oomph when they come back to school, a new leadership by role modeling what they can do with maybe student council or ABC, or even in their jazz and choir and their athletics. So we're hoping that they can even grab something, and that's where that talking back and that session of reflection will come from. They can tell us what they get out of it. So we're excited.
Yeah, again, there's that community service component. A lot of times when they're younger, it's like looking for those opportunities. So you being able to provide leadership so they know how to go find those opportunities. Don't wait for somebody to ask. They can take the initiative themselves. And I think that's sometimes the struggle, when they're trying to find ways to get the community service hours. I know you give them a lot of opportunities, but we'd like to see them, take the initiative themselves more often to go after that. So this will be good to see.
And where to go to find those opportunities would be great. So yeah, that's it.
Okay, I think we need a motion, correct? Okay, can I have a motion to approve the National Junior Honor Society Leadership Retreat?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Wonderful. Thank you very,
Thank you.
very
Thank
much.
you.
It's great. We'll report back and bring our kids back.
Yeah, it would be great to hear from a couple of them and from you guys how it
Absolutely.
goes.
Yeah.
Is there anything additional planned throughout the year other than this for them? Like any other
Not
leadership?
yet. No, not yet. This is, we're starting small with this now, and who knows, this could branch off to the availability of other things for this group and other groups too.
That's great.
Yeah, we'll see. We could be
We're looking
back in
forward to
front
it.
of you anytime soon, so you never know.
Thank you.
All right, thank you
Thank
very
you.
much. Thank you.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
So you talked briefly about at a meeting in the future, so first meeting in October, second meeting in October, like when would you like to see it?
Let's do second meeting in October, because
Does that
that
work?
first one might be,
Yeah, it's too
give
quick.
them a little bit of time. Yeah, that would be great.
Feedback too, so obviously.
Yeah. We look forward to it. Thank you.
Excellent, thank you. This is the second meeting in October.
Okay, next we need to discuss the 2019-2020 board scholarship for Pinkerton seniors. Just a quick background, every year we give a scholarship from the school board to one boy and one girl from Pinkerton Academy. In the past years, those have each been, well, in the last few years anyways, I know we bumped it up a couple of years ago, but currently it's at $750 each for each student. This is not something that the Hampstead Board chooses the recipients. Pinkerton has a scholarship board who chooses those students. They know those students better than we do, so, but we're happy to be able to do this. Is there any discussion about the amount? I would see keeping it at $750 each.
Either that or increase it.
What's our ability to increase it?
I don't know the answer to that. I mean, we can vote to increase.
No, yeah, not what we want to do, but
I mean, this is in the
What's-
budget year that we're in, so we have budgeted for this as it is. I mean, I do know a couple years ago, we did vote to increase it at the beginning of the year.
We increased it in
200?
17, 18, it's on the back.
Oh,
It was 500 for a long time, and then we went to 750, which doesn't go real far towards a college education these days.
no, but it's something. Books, maybe?
I'd like to make a motion to change it to $1,000.
Second.
Would it be for $1,000 for a boy and for a girl?
Yeah.
each?
Yes.
Thank you.
All in favor?
Okay, thank you.
Great. Oh, okay. So next up, I asked to put this on about a discussion for the middle school crosswalk. I'm not sure if it was a year ago, 18 months ago, the state repaved Main Street 121, and that eliminated our crosswalk at the end of School Street. We do have middle school students who walk. They do have to cross there, and as anyone who's been on Main Street early in the morning, people go pretty fast there. We did talk about it at some previous district safety meetings. I believe we talked about it briefly at the board level, because upon investigation, it actually is the town's responsibility to take care of that, to put up a new crosswalk. When it was initially discussed, I think it was this past winter when it came up, kind of weren't in a good place on the budget cycle to start talking to the town. It is something that's going to need to be budgeted for. So I wanted to bring this up to let people know we still need to address this. And also really to just get board approval for, could be myself, it could be someone else if they want to be designated, to start reaching out to the town, both the selectmen and probably Sally at Town Hall, to either get on an agenda for the selectmen's meeting, or if we can't do that, probably go for public comments to start that discussion. And I think the timing is good because we are getting into budget season, both for the school and the town. So, do we need a motion? Or just
sure, I don't
kind of
think so.
consensus that,
No, consensus would do it, I think.
Is there one needed at each school? Is that what it is?
no, this is just at the end of School Street because of that repaving that happened.
Okay.
And it's not an insignificant amount because there are parameters. I'm still learning about this, but there are parameters. Mrs. Donato, can you speak to this at all? Because I know you've talked to Detective Conway about some of this.
I think you might want Mr. Dowd as well. He has some-
Yes, Mr. Dowd,
Some
any
information.
information, just a little bit of
Briefly,
Yeah.
from my perspective as a school principal, I brought it forward, is this going to be done? And they did the paving, but then we also were waiting for the other paving to be done for School Street. And Detective Conway reached out to the municipality about how this goes, and again, there's something to do with there has to be some lights, and unless there's lights, flashing lights, they can't put the crosswalk. So I'm not sure, it's above me in that vein,
You have
so I
lights over here?
pass it to Mr. Dowd.
No, but it's on a state road. I think the issue comes, I could be incorrect, Mr. Sweeney was asking, do we have to have that over here? I believe the issue is where this is a state road.
As a state road.
And that's why the lights are needed. Is that correct?
Theoretically, those crosswalks have been here for
Okay.
quite a while anyway, so if you're going to put a new crosswalk in, it may be subject to new requirements. That is a state road. The jurisdiction on putting a crosswalk in wasn't so clear because it's a state road. Other factors are, if you're putting a crosswalk in, now does that put some liability on the town to provide a place for people to walk? Right?
Sidewalks, is that one?
So it's
Okay.
not quite as easy as it would appear, and we are looking into that, and we talk about the lights. When you get into running power to a light, a flashing light or whatever, it really does tend to run into some significant funds. So I'm working with the town now, or at least reaching out to the town now, because I thought that had been something we discussed some time ago, and wanted to make sure that I had all of the factors. It simply wasn't as simple as we thought that it would be. So, and then are we required to have a crossing guard there? So there are a number of factors that go into it beyond paint.
Okay. So should we,
I guess the question
Yes.
of when do we expect to have clarity on this? Because it sounds like there's a lot of things that are pretty ambiguous right now.
There are a number of factors, and one thing that they had actually discussed, or that I discussed with Sally perhaps, was there some grant funding? If it did turn into a large outlay, safe paths to school grant be available to municipalities. That comes with a lot of conditions and stipulations. So I'm still working through those issues with Sally, and it's possible the selectmen may have a discussion on that on their own as well. Certainly, if we wanted to, by consensus, indicate that we are interested in that,
I mean,
a
if you
crosswalk.
were able to continue that discussion, I mean, I definitely think we have consensus to do that, because it would be nice to know if we have any sort of timeline on this. Rather not just let it go when we have kids trying to cross there in the morning. So.
Yeah, I would tend to agree, and, just think about in the winter, if the town puts a crosswalk in, if the state will allow them to do that, even with lights, now we're crossing students from the bottom of School Street across Main Street into a snowbank.
Yep.
So there may be other ramifications. It seems like a very simple thing to me, but it's not quite so simple. So, but I certainly can continue that dialogue and provide an update to the board.
Yes, if you
Okay.
could do that. Do we want to set a time for an update just to,
Just to get on the agenda.
yeah, I know how quickly things move.
First meeting in November?
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking is November, first meeting in November.
Perfect.
Okay.
Very well.
Thank you.
When is the town budgeting?
Same as us, so they're going to be starting October. We pretty much start in October. They'll go through all their departments.
Okay.
I'm pulling out my rec committee recollections now. Usually they meet with they have departments submitting final budgets. I'm looking at Penny now. December, early December. Yeah, they have similar timeframes that we
Okay.
do of where we need a budget by, January, beginning of January to go to the deliberative sessions, so.
Got it.
Okay. Board comments and correspondence. David, we'll start with you over there.
Let's see, the only one for me was attending the Hawks opening game today, where they won 7-0 against Epping, which was a pretty amazing game. So
Soccer.
Soccer game, yes, soccer. So that was the one highlight for me.
Great.
Good.
Okay, I actually have a piece of correspondence that we received, actually coincidentally speaking about the board scholarships, we received this from Amelia Graves, who received one of our scholarships this past June. And it just says, "Thank you for supporting me in my future education by awarding me with the Hampstead School Board Scholarship. This means a lot to me since the road ahead of me will be fairly long and costly. I will be studying biochemistry while being on the pre-veterinary track at Montana State University, and later I will apply to vet school. Thanks again for the support." So those are very nice. Thank you from her. I don't think I really have any other updates for me.
I'm good.
All set?
Okay, moving on to consent agenda.
Excellent. Okay, well,
Dr.
first, in your packets, we have one nomination, if you will. So we had a pretty extensive facilities director interview process. We had quite a few qualified candidates, and we had a screening committee led, which yielded us several finalists, which we had the opportunity, Mr. Dowd, the chair, Mr. Parnell, and myself, were able to interview the finalists recently, and we are all in agreement that we are very fortunate to bring to you this evening Jeff Mackey. And Jeff Mackey, first I want to, if he's watching it, congratulate him. He's a new dad, so I'm going to say get some sleep, because when we bring you on, you're going to need some sleep. But you know, he has a tremendous resume, has a lot of experience, very diverse resume in a lot of ways, and certainly has an incredible skill set. And I think he'll be a great leader in our facilities department for many years. He's well known in town and has a lot of great relationships with folks. So as we talked about our goals and how we connect our facilities goals with the person leading those goals, he just lined up perfectly for us. So I'm very proud to bring to you this evening Jeff Mackey, and I'm hoping we can get the support of the board. He'll be ready to start on October 1st. We have an agreement in principle pending your vote.
Well, I think we go right to it. I would like to have a motion to accept Jeff Mackey for the position of Facilities Director for the Hampstead School District.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Okay, thank you.
Well, thank you
Thank
very
you.
much. I can't
Welcome.
tell you, he's very excited and can't wait to get started. And so we'll have him at a meeting, at our next meeting, perhaps, right? If we can get him here at the next meeting. So we'll reach out. So very good. So thank you for that.
You said
Moving on to,
Official start date, October 1st?
that was the targeted start date. He wanted to give his
Yep.
current employer some notice, so wrap up some projects.
No, you just said he'd be here next week at a meeting or something.
He'll be at, well, our next meeting is October, what?
No, September 24th.
September 24th.
September 24th.
September 24th. Well, we could bring him and introduce him. I'll have to
If
check,
you-
see his availability.
Yeah,
And
if he's
not, it'll be the
available-
first meeting in October. Thanks for catching
Great,
that.
but, yeah.
I have a few meetings that all kind of run into each other. So, great, thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Secondly, this evening, we had our annual welcome new staff reception. Let's say, you know, Hampstead, our opportunity annually, we don't have a lot of openings, but we get an opportunity to bring in the brightest and the best. And this evening, we had our newest brightest and best here. And so I want to thank them for attending. I want to thank you for hosting. And I want to wish them well with their careers here in Hampstead. Hopefully, they'll be here for many years serving our community and certainly our families and children. So I'd like to thank you for that. You have in your packets Policy CC, Assistant Superintendent of Schools Policy Discussion about updating. So I didn't know if you wanted to have that discussion now, and I'll defer to the chair to have that discussion.
Yes, so this policy refers to the fact that traditionally, the Assistant Superintendent of SAU 55 has been responsible for day-to-day operations of the Hampstead School District. Knowing what we have been going through the last, at this point, 6 months plus, on the SAU level to try to fill this position, as Hampstead has been interested in filling it, and unfortunately, we have other members of the SAU board who didn't like the way that went, so we have no assistant superintendent right now. In order to make this feasible for Hampstead, we wanted to look at this policy and make some changes to it. Specifically, we're talking about changing this to, I guess, the organizational structure piece. Go ahead. Mrs. Yusenka, do you want to talk to this?
Yeah, just to back it up a little with the history, I think we know the assistant superintendent has always been an integral part to Hampstead. As this policy even reads, the assistant superintendent, from 1990, the assistant superintendent of schools for SAU 55 will be responsible for day-to-day operations of the school district, except in those cases specifically identified as being the superintendent's by law. Because of the situation that, it's really an impossible situation that we've been thrown into because members of the Timber Lane Board absolutely refuse to accept any of the nominations that have been put forth. I really feel that Hampstead's taking a hit. They're harming the way we do business and the way we've done business in the past. So I think what we need to do is to change this, because right now we're not even following our policy. So it's a case where we're going to have to change the policy to follow the practice. And what I would recommend is just saying superintendent of schools for SAU 55 or his designee will be responsible for day-to-day operations. And also under the administrative team, which consists of the assistant superintendent, we would put down which consists of the superintendent's designee.
Should we just write this for, one, when we get a superintendent, and two,
Assistant.
if we, assistant superintendent, and two, if that assistant superintendent isn't around? So, because the way we're writing, the way we're going to change it now, when we get an assistant, right? So,
You could also, you could just
You know
put
what I
that this policy, these changes will remain in effect until such time that Hampstead has its own.
I'm just saying we can word it in such a way that we don't have to change it.
Well,
I
if we
think-
put,
I think you are.
Right.
If I may.
Yeah.
I think if you write superintendent or designee, assistant superintendent could be the designee. And in
Well, that's
fairness, you know,
That's
I
what
have-
it always was.
Yeah, and I committed, you know, we reorganized here and we have some new structures, so I had committed to being in this role for a good portion of this year, if not the whole year, as we move forward. Anyway, not that I had a choice at some point, but I did, you know, this was something we had talked about because of the reorganization. Some new staff were doing things a little bit differently, so I wanted to, you know, spend some more time in Hampstead this year, so we're in good shape. But I think the policy as written, or what you're proposing to write, will cover the Hampstead for many years to come.
And it conforms with all our other policies, because all of our policies now read superintendent or his designee. So this will just be following that. And that will allow Dr. Metzler to select a designee for certain things like H-team meetings, if he can't go to all of them. So I just think it would be better for the district.
okay, so kind of getting into what we want to change here. We would change, well,
Can't you just start with superintendent of
yeah,
schools?
so superintendent of schools for SAU 55
Or his
or
designee.
his designee.
Just strike the word his. Or
Yeah, or yeah, I was actually thinking about that. I know we have a his right now.
His/her, yeah.
Yeah, well, it's a he now.
True. Will be responsible for day-to-day operations of the school district, except in those cases, so there's no change after that.
Right.
Then administrative team, the Hampstead administrative team, H-team, consists of the superintendent's designee and district administrators.
Right?
This team meets regularly to communicate issues and to plan administrative strategies for the district. Under organization structure, in the event the superintendent is incapacitated or otherwise indisposed, the superintendent of schools designee will assume all legal responsibilities of the superintendent until such time as the school board can meet to determine otherwise.
I don't know.
The designee of the assistant superintendent.
No, well, we're
Superintendent.
we would strike assistant, sorry, did I read? I didn't.
Yeah, you just read it.
Sorry,
Yep.
excuse me. So the superintendent of schools designee.
And I think that covers it.
But the one in the middle,
Right, I was going to bring.
he would designate himself?
We could do superintendent or designee.
And district administrators.
Yes, and
Yes,
district.
that's what I was
administrators.
asking.
Yeah.
Well, how does that work now, Dr. Metzler?
Well, right now, it's somewhat of a work in progress. My intention is to participate, and obviously I have Mike Flynn, the executive director, so we've been communicating. So right now, he's leading H-team, but, you know, I do plan on participating. I just
So we'll keep that in, superintendent
would designate.
Or
or
designee.
designate? Okay.
Okay,
And it's a policy, so I think we have to vote on it.
yes. Melissa, you got all that right.
I just have one more question.
Yeah.
On the bottom piece, I'm not sure, do we really have to change anything on that?
Well, yes, because we need to put designee somewhere in here, because it says because
assistant
we're saying if the
superintendent.
superintendent is incapacitated,
Yep.
the assistant, what it reads now is that the assistant superintendent assumes all legal responsibility.
Okay.
We don't have one of those,
So it'd be
so it
his
would need to be
designee.
designee. Even though if they're incapacitated.
That's where I was going to say, if he's not available for whatever reason,
Then it would be the designee.
who's going to
Right.
designate that
But if-
person? If he's
You would.
incapacitated.
But if he was incapacitated,
Oh, yeah, that's a good point.
But you could put
I'm just-
you could put executive director in that.
I don't have a problem with that.
And what if-
I was just,
Well, wait,
We're
but
just
wouldn't
gonna
a
keep going down.
designee already have been, there's already going to be a designee in place, the person who's going to H-team and everything else. So if Dr. Metzler becomes incapacitated, that person,
But if, I
now
think, but the argument here is that if, say Dr. Metzler's been attending H-team, do you know what I'm saying? So then there's not a designee already in place, and God forbid.
playing devil's advocate.
I
making-
think
I know, no,
there's
I,
semantics
So we
about
need a
when.
policy to designate someone before you get incapacitated.
Yeah, that's right.
Do the whole list.
You designate someone, you don't wait until you're incapacitated to have to designate someone.
Right, it's
There's a-
already
there's a
been
Put the
next-
school board in
Next
there.
person in charge in the
don't need to.
organizational
Okay,
chart, which would be the
that's where I was
executive
going
director.
with it, so.
And that would be the executive director. So you can name the executive director, you could leave as designee, however you want to, whatever makes most sense to you folks.
He started it.
I mean, I'm good with putting in executive director for this organization structure, because that's, I mean, an organization structure should be in place anyways.
yeah.
So we could do incapacitated or otherwise indisposed. The executive director will assume all,
Yes.
with the full title of Executive Director of 21st Century
Century
Learning
Learning.
and Assessment and Technology. Okay, we'll put all that
done.
in there. Okay, can I have a motion to accept the changes to policy CC?
So moved.
I was going to ask you to,
Oh, sorry. You want me to read the
I was
motion?
just kidding,
Okay,
but I wanted the opportunity.
I'll ask Melissa to read the motion. All in favor? Thank you.
Did you waive a second read, or are you going to read it?
Okay, can I have a motion to waive second read?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Yep, sorry.
So now that's a policy.
That's final, yep.
Got it.
Told you, I need a gavel.
Okay,
Is there one around?
No.
I thought there was one.
Hopefully for your next meeting, I'll have some updated enrollment numbers from Pinkerton. We believe we had those at this point, right?
No, not yet.
No, so it was in conversation with Dr. Powers, and we were talking about, so I'll have those moving forward. As you know, or maybe you don't know, our Blizzard Bag program was approved again by the Department of Education, so we received that in writing, so we have that. You know, again, thank Mackenzie Finicaro, who was one of the people that brought this to me when I first moved here as an option. We have up to 5 days for Blizzard Bags to replace snow days and count as school days. So I believe she's graduating this year.
Oh, no, she's already,
She already graduated? Oh, well, so
I think she's in her
Time-
second year.
time flies. No, she's well into college, right?
Yeah, no, that's what I meant, like her
Yeah.
second year.
I meant graduate.
Oh, college.
She almost
Gotcha.
graduating from college now, I'm not sure exactly what year she's in, but I always like to give her credit because it was her. She brought it to our attention, and it's been great in both districts. They've done a really good job here, you know, both principals and the schools and their staff, so we're glad that has been approved again this year. I think I may have, during my school visits, I'm not sure which rooms, you know, people were asking for a traditional snow day to not make the first snow day a blizzard bag day. So I may or may not have agreed to that, I'm not quite sure. I'm sure someone will remind me, but we want that delicate balance of, kids have an opportunity to play and yet still using those blizzard bags strategically so that we manage the school year correctly, so that's good. Let me see this, the Pinkerton contract. So we have the Pinkerton contract, we've executed that. Caitlin and Ms. Parnell, the chair, has had an opportunity to sign it, so we've gotten that document to Dr. Powers, and Dr. Powers has a Board of Trustees meeting in late September. They'll sign and approve it, and we'll have an executed contract with Pinkerton moving forward. So I wanted to thank you. I know there was a lot of work that went into this over the last year or so, and Dr. Powers was very appreciative and sent his thanks as well as his support for the Hampstead School District. So we thank him for that. Last meeting, I encouraged parents to email and to get in touch with us. So I've heard from some parents, and so that's which is great. So I'm hoping they become accustomed to, if they have concerns, that they feel free that they can reach out directly to me. And that's true about both districts, but for Hampstead, perhaps they've been more accustomed. They go directly to principals sometimes, or they go to the assistant superintendent. I'm encouraging them that if they have issues that they need help with, I'm certainly available. So they can email me and we'll get back to Melissa or myself in a real timely way. So that we have that. Finally, you approved, and we have air conditioners that we have ready to install, and we're in the installation process. It's quite an extensive process in terms of building these brackets and welding them and that. So our hope would obviously be that they would already be in. They're not in yet. My understanding is they'll be in the next couple of weeks, right? So we should have them. Now I know these brackets, we had some issues with, not with the person building the brackets. They're doing a great job. It's Warp Fabrications. It had to do with a company that kind of backed out in terms of the windows, right? So he's doing the whole project, right? These panels he's building and that sort of thing. So they'll be really secure, and these will be excellent brackets. So we hope to have that done, like I said, in the next couple of weeks. So we're staying on top of that. So that's the administrator's report. I guess we need a motion to review the finance documents and a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Okay. Can I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Now, I know that when I did this to Karen when she was the chair too. I know in other districts, we don't really have a consent agenda, so we go item by item. I do appreciate the fact that, Mr. Mackey gets to see his item taken separately, the personnel, and he gets to see a unanimous support from the board. So if the style is different and you want me to kind of do them all at once and then get one motion at the end, that's fine. But I typically would take that out. I would take that as a separate item because I think it's important, because it's a really strong message of support for a brand new director coming into our school district. So I think I appreciate it. I know he'll appreciate it. So thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone have any other business they want to bring up?
I have a question. A question I meant to ask the end of last year, but it just didn't happen. And this timing has nothing to do with tomorrow. It's just, I wasn't at last school board meeting. It's strictly a policy question. I'm not trying to get into a debate, though I could if I wanted to. The RSA 194-15C, the New Hampshire Student Patriot Act, it was a question that a parent had, and I didn't know exactly. The recitation of the Pledge of Allegiance is not mandatory at our school, correct?
That's correct.
So no child should be asked to move his lips or sit or stand. They can choose to do what they want to do.
Yeah,
They
the
wanna
only
sit, they can
criteria
sit.
would be that no one would disrupt somebody else's opportunity to do that. And I think that's just common decency, and people expect that. But I think, no, they're not directed, mandated, or any of those sorts of things. They make those choices themselves, and we work that through.
So it's not hidden in RSA, I guess, because I didn't know. The parent didn't. Is it in a policy also? So the teachers know and the administrators know?
Well, I believe that's been communicated to. I'm not sure if the policy spells that out. I'm sure maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. But I think that's just the way we do business, right? So we wouldn't.
We can
direct
review
them.
that and make sure that it's in there. I mean, I know I've looked recently, and I will be honest with you, I can't remember if I was looking at the state. I believe we do have a policy that relates back to
The
the
RSA.
state RSA.
Right.
But I don't think there's a problem with reviewing it and make sure that, maybe in policy committee?
The policy that I remember on that said that children, our policy, that children had to be taught the history of the Pledge of Allegiance as part of the curriculum. That's in our policy. It was the Pledge of Allegiance, and they have to be talked about Constitution Day and John Stark Day. Yep, that's all in there, because I remember going through this, because I remember reading it going, okay. So it does, we have a policy that says the history of the Pledge of Allegiance is supposed to be taught. I don't know if it is or not, but that is our policy. And I think to Jim's question, I think the thing is both federal law, state law, says there's a piece that's specifically carved out that says it is voluntary. So no child here or anywhere else should be made to say the pledge or be singled out for not saying the pledge. So I think the takeaway from this is, administrators, make sure that that's not happening anywhere in our classrooms, because we don't want to be sued for violation of First Amendment rights. So I think that was the point. Check on
Yeah.
it, make sure it's not happening.
Yeah. I was asked, and I quickly could find the RSA, and I meant to bring it up, and I didn't. I meant to bring it up last meeting, but I wasn't here, so. Thank you.
Well, I think Ms. Senka brings up a good point, too. So it's about the management, right? So this is a thing about the pledge, but it's really about the management of anything, right? So we're not in the business of singling people out, all right, or making them feel bad about, like punishing the whole class for the actions of one or singling somebody out. So I think, we've been working on that in both buildings. I think, and we're going to be talking some more about that with Mr. Flynn, about talking to staff about ways to manage classes and ways to manage these kind of situations. What do I do if my whole class sits down and doesn't say the pledge? Well, it's certainly something they could do, right? So there are a lot of these scenarios which sometimes as a new educator, maybe you're not ready for that. Maybe they didn't teach that in school, right? So that's our job. That's a professional development piece where, if we have a Hampstead way about managing our classrooms, well, we need to make sure that we do a good job of professional development. Now, fortunately, we're in good shape here because PD, mentoring, and curriculum is really something that, this is a collaborative effort. We're working directly with people in the classroom, people in HEA, so they'll be part of the planning of how we go about making sure that we can be as consistent as we possibly can, making sure that we're sending a very, very firm and friendly message about how we expect staff to manage the classrooms. So it's a work in progress. It's not perfect, but we've made tremendous progress over the last few years, and I don't have any reason to believe that we won't continue to make that kind of progress where everybody feels both emotionally and physically safe in our rooms, and especially something like that, if I chose not to pledge, that I can do that and feel safe, to feel like I'm not going to have to explain myself, those sorts of things, right? So that's all part of a bigger picture in terms of managing classroom, but this is one of the issues that would go along with that. Right? Challenge, if you would, but something we need to provide the professional development so that we get it right.
Thank you.
Last school year, were you going to have an update on the homework policy? Were we
just gonna
doing that
ask
again?
that.
What?
I was just going to ask that.
I didn't know, I was thinking about homework because, my daughter and son, and I was like, did we talk about having some update in the future? And I don't remember what that is. Do you?
Yes, we did.
We did.
We
did.
We did. I just didn't know when that was.
I don't think we set a
Okay,
date.
just wondering.
We said it would be in the fall. right,
Yes.
To get prepared, because last year I think there was some discussion around, some parents didn't know what it was and what it wasn't, and we wanted to see what we can do to make it better. So we said in the fall we would have another discussion. So I would ask that maybe next session we have discussion around how it's
You're not here on
going.
the next one?
No, I am here.
You are here
I'm
on the
here.
24th?
Yep.
Okay.
Well, yeah.
Does that give enough time? I'm going to ask administrators. Yes. Would you be ready by the next meeting, which is the 24th, to give kind of an update on what's going on with homework this year?
All right.
I mean, I wanted to give you
Well,
more
update-
time if you need,
Updates are easy, but
yeah.
specificity in
updates.
terms
If I
of what
could-
we really want,
So
right?
what we had asked, and we talked about last year at the end of the year was, I think it came really soon and really quick last year is what we were told, and it happened later in the fall to communicate to parents. And you all were going to focus on in the beginning of the year to get that explanation in the plan out to parents earlier in the year and collect feedback of how you're going to incorporate slash execute it in a better fashion so parents weren't confused and everybody was under the same understanding of what's expected, what can they opt in of, and what could they opt out of. That was kind of the discussions around. We can always go back to those minutes, but that's what we were asking for.
Well, that's specificity, so an update based on our communication plan with families, right? So that we feel like, people have adequate notice. I think we talked briefly too, and I'm certainly still looking at this idea of periods that make a lot of sense to black out. So if we get around the holidays, this may not be a good time for homework, right?
Didn't we
We
say
may
we were
take an
gonna,
opportunity to, well, we need to have those discussions.
yeah, didn't we
Then
say we
go
were
ahead.
going to not do it for the first month of school? Right, I thought we were doing that again.
Well,
Okay.
we didn't start school that way. I really thought around, when there's a lot of testing or around the holidays, there's some discussions we have to bring back to you. So maybe as part of an update, maybe during the year, or even to look at, sometimes where, I think one of the questions, and it was really a hard question, was like, what's the damage? Like what happens if they don't have homework? What happens if they have too much homework? And those sorts of things. And this isn't like not turning the kids into guinea pigs. We're not trying, but we want to get this right. So I think those are some discussions we have to have. We can be part of the update, but I certainly had planned on trying to black out some periods that I thought made a lot of sense to let kids go home, enjoy family time, or they have a lot of pressure on them in terms of testing and those sorts of things. And I think those are things that we need to, as a group, to be very strategic and then look and see, that may be some evidence, that may be some data to talk about when we have homework, what homework looks like, and when we don't have homework, and why we don't have homework, for a reason, right?
I would just add that I remember some of the teachers were speaking that this was the first year that they went through it, so they felt like they couldn't finish their lessons. So some of the stuff was going into the night, or they were carrying over the next day, and they couldn't get through everything that they wanted to teach to. And we're going to try to use some of those practices or learn from that and apply it this year. It might be worth going back to that video. It was about 10-minute, 15-minute discussion from the teacher's perspective. Never mind what we were asking, but it's worth hearing what those teachers were saying and how to incorporate lessons learned for this year. So,
Yeah, pacing's always,
right.
It's an art, right? So, how I can use the time that you've given me to communicate the information, and then, what impact did it have or not have? So, when it's the new normal, I think it takes a few years to get, your pacing down, so. And it's so personal, right? So from teacher to teacher, it's very different, so.
So then all the new teachers get that from their mentor?
I didn't, yeah.
Like, how it works there in Hampstead with homework? The new teachers get it from the mentor?
Well, they would get that from mentoring, right, and professional development. So we have the mentoring program, which that's really, HEA is really, like I said, it's a very collaborative effort. Not that it hasn't always been, but they have more of a leadership role in that now. So we have two staff members that are helping, directly with Mr. Flynn and the principals to make sure. So my hope in terms of mentoring, that's where that information, so if they have questions, they have someone they can go to and count on and get good advice from, right? In addition to the PD, they need to get the information from the administrative staff, but they also need to have a peer that they can count on to help mentor them, right? In terms of, so that they don't send things home when they shouldn't, or the homework's doesn't line up with the policy, all those sorts of things when, especially if you work somewhere else and you operated under a different set of policies and you come here and Hampstead does it this way, understanding, the Hampstead way of doing business really is important. And that's really not just about homework, that's really back to what I was saying earlier. It's about classroom management. There's a Hampstead way of doing business, and when we bring people in, it's our job to make sure that they understand what that is. It's not their job to figure it out. We need to make sure that they understand this is the way we do business here. Now, you may have been successful with a different strategy or skill somewhere else, but that may not work. That may not be what we want, right? So I leave that up to the principals, certainly Mr. Flynn, and that's certainly, my responsibility to make sure that the new staff gets it,
Yep,
jump right in since
yep.
you asked? I would rather you give us until the first meeting in October, because I do know that this was covered at the beginning of the year with all the opening staff meetings. It was covered through the mentoring and all of the beginning of the year stuff. And I'm at that stage now where I'm going back and reviewing this with each of my teams at the end of the month and seeing where we are. In all fairness, I would like to have more than just a week or two here to give you a better report in October. And Maria and I just chatted. She's got the same dynamic at the middle school.
I think that makes sense, because as we've talked, I feel like this has expanded a little bit more than just an update, so yes, I would agree.
Thank you.
Let's do the first meeting in October, please.
Would you like teachers too, or no? Just an administrative report, or would you like?
I would like administrative report and then perhaps a teacher piece, maybe a little bit later on, because to me, if they've changed the way they're doing homework this year, they need a little bit of time to see if it's working. I don't know. That's
I'd
me.
leave it, leave it up to you, to.
That would be my take on it, to give the teachers a little bit of time. Because if we're talking about the beginning of October, they've really only had 3, maybe 4 weeks to
Right.
have what is maybe a newer setup.
That makes sense. And I think the other part that's important is, remember, we need to, take care of Emma's request as well. We should have some students involved in this at some point when we feel it's appropriate to get the students' perspective. That was her, remember she offered that, and I thought that was really, really great advice to get, the customers kind of, how they feel about this.
I mean, it might be worthwhile to target the spring as a really comprehensive report to see where we are, and have that be the teachers and the students, and I don't know.
I think that's what the board had talked about last time, that it would be sometime in the spring to talk about surveys and other things that pertain to it.
So the spring would be March or April. We're talking 7 or 8 months. So I'm just going to jump right in here right now. We do have a policy in place, and I'm already aware that it's not being followed. And so I would really appreciate it if our administrators would spend some time with our teachers and help them understand what meaningful and purposeful is, because I happen to know that in elementary grades, homework is being assigned 4 and 5 days a week to everyone, the same worksheet. That is in no way meaningful, purposeful, and it's certainly not personalized or individualized when every child is going home with the same worksheet. So if you could pay some attention to that, I think it would be appreciated, because by doing that right now, you're not following policy.
So part of our report, right, so Mr. Flynn, if you would, with Mr. Collins, because we're talking central school, right, not the middle school, right?
Central.
Yeah, so if you could look into that and make, as part of that report out, make sure that the policy is being followed, and we certainly, if you find areas where it needs my attention, please let me know, right? So we'll get on that as well.
Okay. Any other business?
I think. Something.
Okay. In that case, I would like to ask for a motion for a non-public. I'd like to go in under 91A3 1L, under legal. Need to have a discussion.
Second.
All in, oh,
Roll
can you
call.
pull the, Melissa, can you pull the board?
Yes.
Thank you.
Mr. Giard?
Yes.
Mrs. Parnell?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney?
Yes.
And Mrs. Yusenka?
Yes.
Thank you.
No decision.